Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Autistic Tidbits and Tangents podcast. I'm Maja Toudal. I am an autistic psychologist from Denmark, and this is my co-host,
Kara Dymond. I'm an autistic teacher and university lecturer from Canada.
Cool. And today we are going to be talking about rabbit holes and kind of hyperfocus. Basically what we talked about was what are things that we fall into and suddenly spend 5 hours on that isn't necessarily a special interest, because obviously special interests kind of stay with you for some period of time, but sometimes there's things that you just spend 5 hours on and then that was that.
And there's your day.
Yeah. And I will admit some of my things I kind of fall back into a couple of times, but then it's like, now I know enough about this thing. Now I don't need to keep falling into that. And then it becomes more of a, it's just there thing.
Yeah, I find it difficult because I'm a very curious person.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of fleeting interests. I can become interested in things very easily. I can become interested because someone else is interested in something. Like if someone else is curious about something, I'm like, yeah, tell me everything. Like I'm very enthusiastic about learning new things. But yes, it does mean not wasted time because it's time I enjoy, but sometimes if I'm supposed to be doing something else, like my PhD research, and suddenly you're researching something completely random and unrelated, and then following that rabbit hole, oh, I should now look up this. Oh, I should look up this. And I'm like immersed in archaeology news from, the last 30 years.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a problem.
Yeah, I get it. Okay, so that's basically the topic for today. So let's get going.
Dance break. Oh, I will edit that part out.
Put jingle here. Welcome to Autistic Tidbits and Tangents.
Candid conversations between autistic off-hour professionals.
Cool. Trigger warnings for this episode include discussions of hyperfocus topics, special interest topics that are not altogether pleasant, such as the Holocaust or child abuse. I don't know if we can say the word. Sometimes some platforms will, do things when you say the actual words. Mostly, though, generally, most of the episode is fine.
There might be a cursey word or two. We tend to have cursey words. Can't remember.
All right, so rabbit holes that we fall into. And I think today we're going to we're going to talk about hyperfocus and rabbit holes kind of in general a little bit, but I think it's also kind of just sharing what our experience is with it and what kinds of rabbit holes we fall into.
I love that. And how it looks differently at different stages of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in childhood, what did it look like for you?
You know what? I don't remember so much. I think that my childhood and teen years were so colored by chaos that I don't remember a whole lot. I remember flashes here and there. So I couldn't tell you too much. I know that one of the things that I did was I had I had like a day or a couple of days where it was like teepees.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And I ended up building a teepee in our backyard. We lived in this house that at the very end of our garden, the lot that I can't find words right now. The lot that was right behind ours,
Okay.
it was kind of a little forest area, which was weird because it was in the middle of town, but weird. It was there, and there was a lumberjack there, and so there were these piles of logs,
Yeah.
and little trees that were kind of chopped down, and they were, all the branches had been cut off and everything, and they were just laying there.
Yeah.
And I was so young that for me, I didn't understand that there was a lumberjack and that, that was his work. I didn't understand that, those trees belonged to someone. Yeah. To me, it was just trees.
They're there.
They're just, yeah. So I actually went in there and I stole 12 of these, and they were fairly small, because I was a kid, so I didn't need like a huge teepee, but I took the ones that I could carry in. I took 12 and I put them all together and I fetched some rope and tied them together, and then I took blankets from inside, and I built my own teepee. Yeah. And it's not that I necessarily ever played in it.
Yeah.
It's not that I was super interested in Native Americans or their history or anything. I had seen a teepee and I thought that was fun, and I had heard kind of peripherally somewhere how they were made, like how the logs were tied together and things like that. And so I had to do it.
Yeah.
I had to just try it.
The impulse was there. Yeah.
And then that was a thing. And then I was done with it. And my mom got pretty pissed because I had used, inside blankets.
Outside.
That were kind of expensive. And I put them outside on a teepee.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Not too far off that, I remember spending a couple of recesses as a child building tiny like log cabins out of twigs. Mm-hmm. Just because, why not? Why not make miniature things? Thought that was kind of cool. So yeah, like a fleeting interest. I didn't do it all the time. I did it a few times. I have a lot of like consistent special interests, like definitely musical theater was one, and reading reading some of the same novels because it just brought me so much joy to be in the world. But a fleeting reading interest, well, not even fleeting. I spent a couple of years having to read everything related to the Holocaust. I think I've talked about that before in our feed, but just like, it was uncomfortable. I didn't enjoy it because how do you enjoy that kind of reading? And I was like 11, 12, and it was just so heavy to learn about like the worst of humanity, but I had to go down all the rabbit holes. I had to know, like my urge to know outweighed how heavy it was on my soul and my brain and my energy.
Yeah. I remember reading a story, and I don't know why this was in the school library.
Oh, no.
And I don't know, like, I couldn't tell you what book it was. But I remember finding a book in my school library, and I know I would have been younger than 12 because I left that school because we moved. So I was only there up until 6th grade. Okay. So I know that I was younger than 12. Mm-hmm. So let's say I was somewhere between 10 and 12 when I found this book. And I'm not sure if it was fiction or if it was kind of autobiographical, but there was a section in it about the the girl that was the narrator's voice, and kind of non-physical child sexual abuse. It was about how she showered.
Yeah.
And like her father being very particular about it. And I remember the details because things like sometimes information gets branded in my brain and I can't get rid of it.
I know exactly.
And again, it was super uncomfortable to read. I didn't like it. I knew even as a very young child that this was definitely something that was very wrong and very like I didn't know the word for traumatic, but I knew that it was,
But you can't look away. Yeah.
But I can't look away. And I had to finish reading the book.
Yep.
And I don't remember any of the rest of the book.
Just those horrific parts. Yeah.
Yeah. I just remember that one part that got kind of like branded in my brain.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but sometimes I think our hyperfocus, we can't control it. Just like we can't control a special interest, we also can't control our hyperfocus. It's like suddenly some bit of information just catches it, and then you're there and you're in it and you cannot escape until you're done with that thing.
Or it's done with you. Yeah. And it's like you zoom in. Mm-hmm. It's like we oscillate between these two states, the hyperfocus and hypervigilance, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm either noticing everything in my environment and I'm completely distracted and blah, 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 and I can't keep thoughts in my head, or it's like a vortex that pulls me in and I don't notice anything else.
Yeah.
I can tune out sounds beautifully, which normally would not happen. I can someone can be talking to me and I will not hear them. And I'm like, what did I miss? Can I finally emerge?
And sometimes it's a joyous place, right? So with our special interests. Yeah, but like sometimes, especially with special interests, that state of flow or whatever it is that we get into there in the hyperfocus, sometimes it's a joyous place. Like for me, that's what music does.
Yes.
So I will be listening to music. Not just like I can't put on the radio. That does not work because commercials and things and songs I don't like and everything. But I have so much music, and putting on music will put me in that state of hyperfocus. Sometimes it takes a while to get there. Like if I'm in a state of anxiety or severe stress or something, it takes a while for it to work. But once I'm there, the whole day just disappears.
Yeah, it's like the angels sing.
And I know that I can do that with music.
Yes.
And it's so effective for me as a stress management tool. So I keep going back to it.
That's great.
But I think with the fleeting rabbit holes, it's different because yes, it can be joyful, but it's also just unexpected and unplanned. And there's no like sense of I am choosing to engage with this thing right now.
Yeah.
It's just, it sucks you in and you're there and you're like, well, that was my day or that was my entire week. And now I have to deal with the reality of all the things I didn't do.
Yes, exactly. Well, I was falling down the rabbit hole of how Crayola discontinued my favorite crayon in the 90s. And now I'm really traumatized because it was my favorite color and I can never find it again. Blue-green.
You know what? I kind of feel like I kind of feel like the kinds of videos that are produced by ContraPoints and Philosophy Tube, they're kind of one of those rabbit holes just boiled down to like somewhere between 30 minutes and an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that because it's like, okay, here we go. Let's do a crash course on this topic.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, yes, great. Let's do that. And I kind of feel like podcasts do the same thing. So certain types of podcasts, if it's a topic that's interesting. But the thing is, I will binge a season just like I do with TV. Like a new season comes out of a show I like, and it's a whole weekend. Just
you're all in.
It's just gone.
Yeah.
But again, I feel like that's more of a choice.
Yeah.
Then I mean, it's still hyper-focused though, because you can't suck me out of it. Like I'm gone. I'm gone. Don't even try to talk to me.
Yeah. You're doing it. Yeah.
Like I forget to eat.
I was going to say, like, when I hyperfocus, I'll be like, oh, I haven't gone to the bathroom, and I probably needed to several hours ago. You know?
Like my husband will actually go and like knock on the door, or if I'm in the living room, he'll come and join me and he'll be like, did you eat anything in the last, 5 or 6 hours? And I'll be like, I don't know. And he'll be like, should you eat something?
Yeah.
Probably.
I get very grumpy when I'm interrupted, but I will eventually grudgingly be like, thank you, you were right. You know what I mean? But the initial reaction is, don't stop me. I'm in a flow state. Like, I won't get back into this. You know? Yeah.
No, I'm easier to interrupt when it's like a TV series or something. But if I'm
a little bit different, yeah.
It's a little bit different. But if I'm listening to something, okay, so one of my rabbit holes that is kind of something that I choose to engage with, is Emily D. Baker's streams of lawsuits. So she's a lawyer. She's a former prosecutor, and she will stream court trials and do legal commentary. And here's the thing, I'm not interested in law. And this is American law, so it's got nothing to do with me at all. Like it's completely, it does not affect my life. Yeah. Okay. Not at all. And I'm usually not interested in the trial when I begin.
Yes.
Like right now it's, I'm watching the Alec Murdaugh trial.
Okay.
And like, it's so many hours of content. This is not a 5-hour rabbit hole. This is, a month of your life that's gone. But I find it soothing. I find it soothing because it doesn't affect me. And because there is enough about it that's interesting that I can kind of keep a flow state going with it. And I get sucked into her way of speaking. She's ADHD, by the way, which makes her a lot better to listen to, because I'm like, I relate to some of these things. Like some of the things that bug me too.
Yeah. And
some of the things that she gets excited about, I get excited about it too, because like I get drawn into the ADHD excitement.
Yes.
And I know when I start a day, because I'm watching this trial right now, I know when I start my day that I have to choose whether it is going to be a day where I can allow myself to fall into that rabbit hole or not. Yeah. Because if I start in the morning, I like to listen to something while I'm eating breakfast, for example. Yeah. If I start watching that, I will not get anything done that day.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I hear you. I know exactly what you mean. Like it take you know it will take up so much time, so you can't allow yourself to indulge at times because it is
Mhm.
an indulgence. You know, it's
Yeah.
like McDonald's for your brain, although McDonald's terrible analogy. I take it back. Oh, but
I, I
it
would
gives you that
I
rush.
would say I would say that this specific Emily D. Baker is not so much McDonald's for your brain. It's like really good ice cream. It's super
Love it.
addictive and it is actually good, but it's not necessarily good for you to spend that much
That much
time
time
on that one thing.
skimming it. Agreed. Uh, yeah, and I also get into rabbit holes for other people because people are one of my main interests. Like I'm
Yeah.
very interested in what makes people tick. I'm very interested in knowing things about people, whether I know them or not. But if I have a friend who's like, I'm thinking of moving into this neighborhood, I'll be like, let's look at the MLS real estate listings. You know what I mean? And I'll be like, look at this, look at this. This is your budget. Like it's like I can be too much, you know?
Oh my gosh. No, yeah, I definitely relate to that. I do it a lot with like if I find a good singer,
Yeah.
again, like me with music is like a thing.
Yeah.
But if I find a singer that I don't know and they're good, I will spend 5 hours listening to everything they've ever done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like looking at their social media and things. And then when I come out of that, then I might casually listen to their music sometimes, but like the rabbit hole is gone. I'm done
And
with
not
that.
with that intensity and
Yeah,
that.
like exactly. The hyper focus on that artist is gone.
Yeah.
But then there's other artists that become a special interest. You know what I mean?
Yes, that stick around forever. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
And like you can't escape. You're just you're done for.
It will always do that to you, whatever it does. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you do this with academic stuff too?
Oh my gosh. Yes. It is hard because you'll set out to research one topic,
Mm-hmm.
find an article that is on that topic, but then
Mm-hmm.
you'll want to be like, oh, they referenced this article. Oh, and like you get further and further away, like you branch
Mm-hmm.
out
Yeah.
and you then are overwhelmed by how much that you've read and you want to read all of their references and then all of those people's references. And it's like an overwhelming task. And I truly believe that much of academia are neurodivergent folks because we love to be so engrossed in topics near and dear to our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
But this is one of like the downsides is that my brain just loves to voraciously collect information and doesn't always filter out the things I shouldn't be collecting information on because I'm just like, now I'm so curious about this. And like, I follow my nose in this direction.
I feel like so I don't read academia anymore. Like once I was done with university, I was like so done.
Yeah.
But what used to happen would be that I would be reading something, I would get frustrated that they didn't get towards the point that I felt like was missing.
Yes.
And if there was any point that I thought was kind of in that direction and there was a source on it, I would be like, I want to read that instead. Can I read that instead?
Yeah.
And university in Denmark, I mean, I don't know what it's like at the PhD level because I don't have a PhD. I have a master's degree. And up until the master's degree, Danish university is very like, you have this curriculum. This is what you're going to be going through.
Yeah.
You have X number of pages that can be elective literature.
Yes.
But it has to be within this narrow topic, right?
Yeah.
And those are the things that frustrate me because like, I think I could get very excited about academia.
Yes.
If I had had freedom from the beginning.
Yeah.
But it was turned into a school thing. Like I felt I was going to high school 2.0.
Well, this is why like grad school was my favorite part of school because you do have more ownership and choice, but you do have to also develop some self-directed skills.
Yeah.
And luckily I had an amazing course on that, which really helped. I don't think I would have survived without that course, but the freedom to pursue knowledge the way I wanted to, I very much enjoyed.
See, what happened for me was I've only had 2 projects where I could really choose what to do. Yeah. My bachelor's project and my master's thesis, right? And both of those, it's like you have just about 4 months to do it.
Yeah.
And again, there's like, you have to have X number of pages of literature, blah, 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 blah. Primary literature, secondary literature, all of these very academia rule-y things. Yeah. And for me, my thesis was like, this is a really important topic. I really want to write about it. It's important to me, but it's not actually about a special interest. So I wrote my master's thesis on stress management for autistic people.
Okay.
And I had to specify it a lot because it's a master's thesis. You don't have unlimited space. You have to boil it down, right? But I immediately was struck by this kind of like, there's barely any literature about that. Mm-hmm. There's a whole ton about stress management for parents of autistic children.
Yeah. But not for actual autistics.
Not for actual autistic people.
Yeah.
Or even like about why do we get so stressed? Yeah. And again, an important topic, but autism, shockingly, is not actually a special interest for me.
Okay.
It's not.
Like it is for me.
Yeah, but like it's weird because like it's my career. Yeah. It's what I'm doing. I'm a psychologist. I work with autism. I have made a whole bunch of YouTube videos in my teens and 20s, and books. I write books, and
I'm like totally stimming right now. It's like
I make this podcast. There's so much autism in my life, but it's not actually a special interest. Yeah. It's just something that I am good at. Does that? I don't know if that makes sense, but like I was told early on, like around 20, that I was good at communicating about it. So I was like, okay, there's something I'm good at. Great, let's do that thing.
Do the thing. Yeah.
Do the thing that I'm good at, because that will contribute something. And I do enjoy very much the feedback from people saying, this thing that you did helped me.
Yes.
Because that's, to me, every time I do something that helps someone, maybe they will avoid some of the, frankly, pain and trauma that I've been through. Or maybe I can help them get out of it. And so I do it because it's meaningful. But it's not a special interest. I don't get into the rabbit hole. I don't get that flow feeling.
For me, right? It is all of those things. And so it can be very hard to turn it off at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Or if there's something like, sometimes I'll spend a whole weekend editing together a video for my class because I'm so into it. And I'm so into like, how do I want to convey this information? But it's very hard for me to take breaks. I have gotten better though, because when I went to do the PhD, I had to make a division in my day. So when I get home, I no longer check work emails, because when I was doing the PhD, evening time had to be PhD time. So I have maintained that boundary where I don't usually check work emails. So at least in the evenings, I'm trying to relax and not think so much about, how am I going to communicate this with this family or this child, or how can I help this child? Or, I'm trying to get better at that, because otherwise it is so all consuming.
But here's the thing though, even with special interests, it's important to be able to step away from it and to have room for those other other states of being, even if that is hyperfocus in another topic or another area. Like, it's important to be able to exit whatever it is that you're doing all the time. A friend of mine, his special interest is programming. It's also his career. But, if he's doing nothing else, that's going to be a problem.
Yes.
For his mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So he needs to be able to do other things.
Mm-hmm.
That's then computer games and watching TV, but that's, it's fine. It doesn't have to be something vastly different. It just has to be something else, something that puts you in a different state of mind.
And I think that's why for some people, I know several ADHDers who have like a really remarkable talent in some area, but do not want to monetize it. They don't want to do it as a career because it will cease to be rewarding. It'll cease to feel good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Whereas for me, it feels good to be both. Like,
I think the thing that happens is that when it becomes your job, it stops being interesting. Mm-hmm. So obviously this doesn't happen for everyone, but for me, I'm going to go back to music again. Okay. So music, special interest, very much a safe haven in my life throughout, like, since I was a really young child, like 5-6 years old. But I thought that meant that I should do music classes in school. I shouldn't. What actually happened was, so Danish school is divided very differently than American school system and probably many other school systems. But our equivalent to high school, I took a music class.
Okay.
And learning theory about how music is structured, how it's made, how it's supposed to be, I stopped writing music.
Ugh.
And I never started again.
Oh, no, that's devastating.
So for like 6-7 years of my life, I wrote like 60 songs a year, at least.
Yeah.
Not all of them were good. Like, I'm not saying anything about the quality here. I'm just saying that was a creative output for me.
Yeah, you were productive. Yeah.
I started this class and I stopped writing, and I have kind of forced out a couple of songs since, because I've been trying to get back to that place that I had before. It's gone. And I think that happens for a lot of neurodivergence, that when something becomes a school thing or it becomes a job thing, then it's placed into that category of demands that are difficult to meet, or where you can't just be authentic in it.
And perhaps it's when it's really prescribed, right? So I'm very lucky that the program that I teach is very flexible. I get to kind of decide. There's a suggested curriculum, but I'm not actually held to it. I can meet my students where they're at. So that to me is the creative part. If someone told me you have to teach this and this and this in this order, I'd be gone. Like, I can't do So for me, freedom is important. Mm-hmm. And even in school, what I enjoyed in school was I did take ownership over it. And I would say to teachers, like, I wouldn't say like these essay topics are crap, but I would say, like, I'm not really interested in any of these. Could I do this instead? Or could I write a play and like perform it with my friends instead? Like, freedom to me is the hook, I think. Yeah. So I would agree with you. Like, if something's too prescribed, music theory, I could never do that either. And I remember thinking, like, if everyone goes to the same music schools and come out with the same like idea of what music should be, it's going to be really boring. Yeah,
and I think you can actually hear it when you listen to music that is made by people who were educated in music. and versus people who were self-taught.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you will find songs that don't have the quote unquote correct structure,
but are so creative and layered and complex and interesting and innovative, and like you haven't heard anything like it.
And sometimes someone who's educated in music will be able to do that as well. But it's like a purposeful, I'm going to go out of the norm now.
Yes.
Instead of an authentic one.
Yeah, and sort of intuitive.
And the thing is, like, with music, there is a script. Mainstream music, popular music, anything that makes money, it's got a script. You do this, then this, then this, then this, then this. There are rules. There are rules to how many chords in a song. There are rules to how fast the chorus should be played. Like, everything is just cookie cutter. Yeah. And that is why some of the most successful songwriters, you know, they found a script and they're sticking to it, and they're so prolific because they don't have to think about what should this song be about.
Yes.
They already have. It's almost like when you're writing a book, right?
Yeah.
You know that you need chapters. You know, if you're writing fiction, that this is kind of how it's. Yeah, this is the arc of beginning and conflict resolution and things like that. It should go into this kind of framework. So if you're writing a fiction book, you kind of know where to start.
Yeah.
You just have to find those points.
Yeah.
And then put something into them.
Yeah.
Same thing with music. And for me, music was therapy.
That's understandable.
Completely different thing.
It's such it's an access point that helps you to process your emotions, process the world's emotions. Like, music is like a really quick way to access those things.
It is. Okay, so we're getting completely off topic.
We're hyperfocusing. No, almost.
We're hyperfocusing now on special interests instead of hyperfocus.
Right.
Okay. What are some areas of hyperfocus that you have been trapped in recently?
Oh, anything like history, archaeology, science, dinosaurs. Like, I'll find an article or my phone will recommend things and I'll be like, oh, now I need to read everything about this topic. Oh, like I can't get enough. I can't get enough of that kind of thing because I love to learn and I love to make sense of the world. And what was I reading about the other day? I was reading about a new discovery about how, I don't remember all the scientific terms perfectly, but it was a little boy whose father was it's called entomologist. Is entomologist the insects, or is that history of words? I can't remember. They're so close. Anyway, he studies insects. The child noticed how ants would carry away these oak galls, which are kind of like encased seeds, I guess. Wasps would sort of like lay eggs in the galls, but it's like deliberate manipulation by the wasps to get the ants to get the oak to produce those things, and then the ants carry them to different places. And I was like, whoa, this is so cool. And so that was one rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Dinosaurs, new dinosaurs. I'll be like, oh, what do we know about it?
One of mine recently has been octopi.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. And this actually comes from a client that I have right now. I'm doing support hours, which is very different from clinical work, because in clinical work, it's very treatment focused. Whereas support hours, it's like, I'm just spending time with her, right? And we spend a lot of time watching documentaries.
Oh, I love that.
And she loves learning about like everything.
Yeah.
So one of the things that she wanted to show me was something about octopi. And then I was like, oh my God, they're so cool. Like they freak me out. They are aliens, but,
Pretty
but they
much.
are so cool.
Yeah.
And so I had like a week where I was just watching documentaries and reading about octopi.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I also find like, okay, Great Britain has obviously tons of history, but also tons of like specialized niche historians. So I also like going down rabbit holes of documentaries where it's like, all right, this historian is a historian who specializes in middens, which are like toilets throughout history. Like the midden pile is like, ancient shit. How far back does it go? What can you learn from it? But like, I love being like, wow, that's a job. Let me learn everything about what you do for a living. Like, oh,
you can be sure that someone like that, someone who has that of a specific niche, probably neurodivergent.
Yeah, exactly.
The likelihood is up there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so another one of mine recently, due to life circumstances, due to being pregnant and having a little one on the way. Not that I want to talk about that in every episode. But I kind of started thinking about, okay, so our economy for the next years, especially also with like the war in Ukraine happened and that's going on, that's kind of affecting the economy all over Europe.
Yes.
So even though I'm nowhere near the war, it's affecting me in a very real way, in an economic.
On your brain, you're not that far geographically.
Yeah. No. Well, no, not really.
Sorry, I shouldn't have pointed that out. Oh, I'm terrible. Yeah. Okay.
No, I'll be honest. I had like when Russia first attacked, I had this moment of like, well, shit.
I remember we talked about this. Yeah.
This is potentially the Third World War.
Yeah.
Can we not? Sorry for the cursey word. But anyway, yeah, so all of the circumstances kind of made me start thinking about how do I stabilize our economy over the following years? And like, is there anything that I can do? And then I was like, why do we have our money in the bank with barely any interest when we could be investing them? Oh, wait, I know nothing about investing. And then the rabbit hole began.
Oh, that's a helpful one. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it's a kind of productive rabbit hole to be in.
Good one. I think I could get my brain to do that.
I think I spent like a couple of weeks being full on in the rabbit hole, and now it's like at a casual level. But one of the things I did was I got the book, The Intelligent Investor, which it's actually quite old, but the points still stand. And then from there, I've been kind of branching out into finding people online who talk about investing that aren't doing it in a sensationalized way. Okay. So one of the ways that my rabbit holes are very autistic is that I tend to be turned off by the kind of influencers who
reach other people. Like popular?
Well, no, they can be pretty popular, the ones I like, but they don't tend to be the ones that make a big deal out of nothing. Yeah. Or who do things to grab attention. Okay. Like they tend to be the ones that are very like down to earth, very calm in their. So one of the ones I found, for example, I'm not going to pitch people, but like a lot of investment influencers will be like, this is my portfolio. These are the stocks that I'm investing in, and you should check them out. And like they will reveal how they invest. And then there's this guy who's like, no, I'm not going to tell you what my portfolio is, because investing is super personal and it should be tailored to the individual, where you are in life, what you can afford to invest in, over how long a time period you will be investing, things like that. So if I tell you what my portfolio is, I might be giving you bad advice because I'm not tailoring the information to you.
Yes.
And things like that I'm attracted to. I'm like, yes, I like you. I like the information that I'm getting from you because you're telling me why you're doing the things you're doing and why it would be bad to give me this information that other people are trying to share with me. And now I know what I should avoid.
You mean you have a preference for direct, honest, clear communication?
Yes. Oh my gosh, is that an autistic thing? But like that's the kind of influencers that I'm attracted to, even with stuff like nails and like even with the stuff that is shallow.
Yeah.
I just don't like people who are too, you should be doing this.
Yes.
No.
Like, let me come to my own conclusions.
Yeah, and tell me the mechanisms that you're using. Tell me the strategies you're using. Don't tell me
don't manipulate me. Don't guilt me or
or don't throw it in my face.
Yeah.
No, it has to have that rational buildup.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's me. I'm weird like that.
Not at all. Another rabbit hole recently I fell down. So apparently there has been some analysis on Cleopatra's potential perfume. So they're going to try to recreate that. I love things like that, recreating things from the past, not like cloning. I'm not really that interested in that. It's kind of scary to me, but that, and I forget how many years ago, someone restarted starter in ancient Egypt and made sourdough bread or some sort of bread from it. And it tasted very different. Like it had a certain richness. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would eat that. Like, I don't know. It's just so cool. So cool to me.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So we were kind of discussing what thing of the day should be for this.
Oh, it could be so many things.
It could be, but I kind of have a thing.
Okay.
And it's not directly related to hyperfocus.
Okay.
But it kind of often comes up as a part of it.
All right.
So I thought, why not? And I do have to just start off by saying this is not me pitching a thing that, like, I'm not encouraging anyone to go and buy this.
Okay. No product placement here. No
product placement, no sponsorships, nothing. This is just something that I work with that I find useful sometimes as a therapeutic tool. But it's like, I'm not saying that you should go and do this as a private person necessarily, unless it's something you really want to do.
Okay. Understood. No pushing.
Good.
Got it.
No pushing.
Yeah.
So, I'm not a big fan of personality tests, but sometimes they're useful. This particular one is called the Strengths Finder. And there's a book called Strengths Finder 2.0, which doesn't actually give you the test. It gives you a bunch of text that is to do with the results of it. Okay. So what it is this test that you have to pay to get access to, which I find super annoying.
Yeah.
I get it. People have to make a living. And we're selling stuff too, right? I mean, I sell client communication, I sell therapy, and books and things like that, right? So people have to make a living. Great. StrengthsFinder is this personality test where you get asked a ton of questions and you have to answer like really quickly. Okay. You just have to go with your gut and choose whatever. Okay. And you go through it. And at the end, you are shown your top 5 strengths. You can also choose a version where you get your like top 20 or something like that. Don't do that one. If you're going to do one of them, go with the one that's top 5, because otherwise it's too much. Okay. So you get these top 5 strengths of yours that are kind of personality traits. Okay. And these can be things like analytical, or I think one of them is called intellectual or something. One of them is strategic. There's a whole bunch of different ones, right? And the thing is, it will give you these strengths, and then it will give you text relating to those strengths and explaining how this strength might relate to you. And what I do in therapy is I'll go through that text with people and be like, where is this true? Where is it not true? And talk about the points. Yes. And the wonderful thing about it for me is no matter who you are, it cannot and will not tell you anything negative. So whatever your personality traits are, they will be framed as strengths. Yes. And we know that personalities, like personality traits and ways of thinking and ways of problem solving, we know that they have a flip side. So nothing is ever 100% a good thing. But as autistics, we're so often confronted with how the way we do things or the way we naturally are inclined to think is a negative. Yeah. And so I love using this as a way of going like, let's try and see if we can find something positive. Yes. And so when we were discussing this topic of hyperfocus, I was like, yeah. And when you have hyperfocus, a lot of the time it can feel like, why can't I force myself to focus on the things I'm supposed to be doing? I keep being dragged into these rabbit holes and losing a day or a week or 2 weeks. And I just cannot get myself out of it. And what would happen with this test would be kind of flipping that and going, okay, how do we talk about that in a positive way? Yes. What is good about these rabbit holes? What's good about add to your life? Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I love that. And how can we acknowledge, because where I want to get to is how can we acknowledge both sides? How can we use the positives and acknowledge, I don't want to say the negatives, but the challenges that are associated. Some things are harder. Yeah, some things are definitely harder. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's always my approach. Yeah. Especially because I talk to so many teenagers that come in and they're like, there's nothing positive about me. I don't have any strengths. I don't have any talents. I don't have any skills. Like, I have no hope. They're really attuned to the negatives and not exactly. seeing all the things that are working. Yeah, because usually what happens is I'm talking to them when they've been fairly recently diagnosed. So they're just coming out of basically having been told their entire lives, even though they haven't been that long yet, that everything they do is wrong and there's something wrong with them and there's something to be fixed. And now they've got this diagnosis. And let's face it, autism is still being used as a bullying word among children. Yep. And so now they just have this piece of paper that says that they're autistic. And that's, in their view, not a good thing because they've heard about it as a bullying thing, right? All the time, yeah. And so when they come to me and they don't have any hope, I'm like, okay, let's find something good about you.
Love that. I love that approach.
Because we need to train ourselves to think about things in a positive way.
Yeah, and to know that we can have tremendous strengths, as can anyone, but how to resource ourselves using those things.
Yep.
I was going to share, so this will be kind of like a second one. There's a really great website, www.monotropism, I don't know how you pronounce it, monotropism.org. And there's an explanations tab. And underneath that, there's like a 4-minute video that describes the theory of monotropism.
Yeah.
Which is basically how we have the attention tunnel brain and how hard it is to switch to things that are not of interest to us. And it's animated. It's really helpful. I show it to teachers. I show it to kids. Everyone, like, you can benefit from understanding the things that turn our brains on, how it takes us longer to transition when it isn't the thing that our mind is naturally drawn to.
Yeah.
That kind of flashlight focus, right? Where we see what the attention tunnel shows us. But it is such a great explanation for how our brains work.
That's really cool.
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah.
I think Kieran Rose had something to do about it. He's known as Autistic Advocate, I think. Is his handle, the Autistic Advocate? I don't know.
I really like how things are framed sometimes with hyperfocus, because I think people are starting to talk about it as a positive and as something that we can utilize, or at least have be a part of our lives in a positive way.
I do feel like the understanding of it, like when I talk to you, when I talk to other autistic friends, like, we get that it is an enjoyable thing, generally speaking. Hyperfocus is enjoyable.
Generally.
And, I like that even if I don't hyperfocus on the same things you hyperfocus on, I can relate to that experience and how meaningful it can be and how enriching it can be. And I feel so I'm now happily dating an autistic man, and it's the first time I feel like I have someone who really understands hyperfocus and encourages me to hyperfocus within reason on, but like, I know they get when I do that, and they're not going to be offended if I take 14 hours and I'm like not talking for a while. Cause I feel like people don't always understand that about how my brain works, that I need to engage. I need to be engrossed. And then there's a time where I will stop. I will disengage.
Yeah. That happens with my NT friends as well. My non-autistic friends, where they put up with it because they love me, but they don't get it.
Yeah.
And then when you're with someone who is autistic, or ADD, ADHD, because they get hyperfocus too. And I think sometimes hyperfocus is even more an ADD, ADHD thing than an autistic thing. I'm not sure, but it's a huge overlap anyway.
It's hard to say when we have both, right? Like
it's hard to say, but like also the diagnostic overlap between autism and ADHD is huge.
We need to do an episode on that. We had someone write in. They want to see an episode on.
Awesome. Yeah, let's do that. But yeah, when I'm talking to someone who is neurodivergent, they get it. They get it. And they will indulge the weird rabbit hole that you fell into yesterday that you have to tell them about, They'll be like, oh, that's so cool. Here was my rabbit hole.
And you can kind of like take turns info dumping. Although I don't love that term, but like you can take turns being like, I'm going to talk for 5 solid minutes or 10 minutes or whatever, and you'll listen and then we'll switch,
Yeah. And I think socializing about hyperfocus or about special interests, when it's done like that, it works. It works. And it's such a cool way of getting to know someone as well, because the kinds of rabbit holes that people fall into, or the kinds of special interests that they have, and what their experience is of it, because as we talked about in the beginning, not all hyperfocus topics or even special interest topics are necessarily joyful or comfortable to be in.
Yeah.
So how a person talks about the topic that they fell into, you learn so much about them. I feel like it's such a quick way of getting to know someone.
Yeah.
And I love that.
And I also love, like, it's amazing when you are hyper focusing and it's great and it's rewarding and it is joyful.
Yeah.
Like, you don't notice 14 hours go by. It's like, whoa, like, it's just, it is such a cool experience to have, to be like, wow, I just did that. I tuned everything else out. The whole time I'm getting my like dopamine fix and whatever other neurochemicals that make me feel great.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me sad sometimes that other people don't always experience that.
Yeah, I wish that everyone got to experience. I mean, okay, non-autistics and neurotypicals can experience flow as well. I just think it's harder for them to reach, maybe
shorter spurts. Like, I don't know that they have the stamina we have. I don't know.
I think maybe what they don't have is the impaired interoception. Yeah. So that when they actually need to go to the bathroom or they need to eat something, maybe they notice.
Maybe they notice
and then they interrupt themselves. And then they don't get back into the flow. Maybe.
And it's why we become experts, because we do way more focused, intensive research or whatever
about all of our physical needs, like sleep.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's like, a hyper focus that comes up in the middle of the night where you're like, I should be sleeping, but now I'm going to research this on my phone. And you're like, oh no, it's time to wake up.
Oh my God. It's one of the worst things about like having your phone as your alarm.
Yeah.
So I do this too. My alarm is on my phone, but if I have to not spend 2 hours reading about something or whatever on my phone before I sleep, I cannot put it within arm's reach.
Yeah.
Like I have to put it at the other side of the room and then go to bed.
That is a good boundary to set and to have.
I mean, sometimes I'll allow myself to have that, because
but you can kind of feel when it's going to suck you in, and when it's a quick thing.
But that's definitely a self-insight, self-awareness that developed in my adulthood. I could not have had that self-control as a teen. So, yeah. Well, I think time is up for this round. And we've talked about a whole bunch of stuff. We had a couple of tangents, as we do. So thank you for joining us today. And we hope that you will join us for the next episode, which we don't know exactly when is going to be out. So please do follow, subscribe, whatever it is on the platform that you are listening or watching on. And then you should hopefully be notified when there is a new episode. We are sorry, but the schedule for this second season is a little bit disjointed. But yeah, thank you for putting up with it and listening anyway. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
See you later. Autistic Tidbits and Tangents.